Well, the winning streak couldn't last forever. Vikings fall 23-27 in Buffalo, but they came within an inch of the Buffalo Bills, and there's a lot that they can hang their hats on. And hang on one second, I am getting an update. That can't be right. That's impossible. I'm being told that the Vikings won? I gotta verify this. Give me 1 second. Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast.
You are Locked On Vikings, your daily Minnesota Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Locked On Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host, your pal, and the kid you copied off in math class. My name is Luke Braun. You can find me on Twitter at LukeBraunNFL. Show is on Twitter at Locked On Vikings. Thank you so much for making Locked On Vikings your first listen of the day. You can also find Locked On Vikings on Amazon Fire or Roku. Just download the Locked On Minnesota Sports app. Today's episode of Locked On Vikings is presented by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. Pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on entry. First-time users receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. That's prizepicks.com. Promo code Locked On. And no, of course, the Vikings didn't lose. They beat the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo, 33-10, in an absolutely bonkers insane overtime thriller. Game of the year, everybody is saying, and it is difficult to argue with them. There is so much to break down about this game. If this podcast ends up being longer than a usual Locked On Vikings episode, I apologize, but there is just so much to go through because of how insane this game was, and I have a feeling most of you won't mind. So, let's take this moment by moment, and we'll sort of talk about things as they come up rather than doing like offense, defense. So this game starts with me losing something from You Betcha. The Bills get the ball first and they go 3 and out. I thought they would score on that. And that was one of the bets that I had. So I lost there, but 3 and out, couldn't ask for a better start. And then the Vikings go down, drive down on an insane third down conversion Justin Jefferson play. A theme, you will hear stuff like that a lot. Where he not only catches one on, I think it was like some kind of like deep in-breaking route, but then he like breaks away from the tackle and he gets like 30 more yards on top of it. And he also catches just a quick go ball from like the 25 for a touchdown over Dane Jackson. Dane Jackson, hilariously, another guy from the Diggs trade. The Vikings, when they traded Diggs to the Bills, part of it was a 7th going that way, and that 7th turned into Dane Jackson. So Diggs trade on Diggs trade stuff. And that's what the broadcast made this whole thing about, right? It was about like Diggs and Jefferson, and they had all their packages, right? Of course they did. But you had all kinds of other things, the brothers, Dalvin Cook, James Cook, the storyline of would Josh Allen play? Turned out he did. And he did not seem hampered by that elbow at all. I mean, he was full on Josh Allen, for better or worse sometimes. Case Keenum, Harrison, Phillips, there's all sorts of intrigue in this game that already make it like this really cool game, but then not only that, but the way it went, game of the year, right? So after that touchdown, the celebration that Jefferson did spooked a lot of people. So let me explain that right quick. He did the gritty, but he like held his hamstring, and that was a reference to something that happened in a college football game earlier in the weekend where a player like made a sack and then came up holding his hamstring and really made it look like he was hurt and then like smoothly transitioned that into a gritty. Fantastic stuff. And Jefferson was just paying homage to that. So don't worry, his hamstring is fine as it stands right now. But goodness, JJ, buddy, if you're listening, please don't do that to us. So that puts the Vikings up 7-0, and then things start to slow down for us. The Bills get the ball, and they just kill us in the run. I think I have a hypothesis for what happened there. It's essentially the run plays that the Bills called kind of hard-countered one of the run-fit stunts that we like to do, and they got us on it a whole bunch. I'm not quite confident enough in being able to explain it, so stay tuned. That's something we might talk about Wednesday. But either way, they ran the ball down our throats, drive all the way down, score. We go 3 and out. They drive all the way down and score again. So it's 14-7 all of a sudden in the blink of an eye. And the second drive was a lot of throws to the outside, difficult throws. I mean, not gimme throws at all. So yeah, elbow's fine. Josh Allen is fine. On the way back from that, down 14-7, Cousins throws the first of 2 hideous interceptions. He just sails one over the middle way too high, lands right in the safety's lap, just like the Taylor Heineke interception from the Washington game, honestly. That sets up a field goal. The defense steals and stops them for a field goal. So now you're down 17-7, and the Vikings respond with a long drive of their own with a lot of TJ Hawkinson, who was responsible for a bunch of third down stuff in this game, and they kick a field goal of their own, so we're at 17-10. That includes a 3rd and 7 and a 3rd and 10 conversion. This will be another theme. The Vikings on third and on late downs doing heroic things, particularly Cousins, Hawkinson, and Justin Jefferson. Dalvin Cook did a lot of stuff on early downs too. So on the way back, the Bills are driving, and it looks like it's getting to the end of the first half, and it looks like the Bills are going to be able to tack a score on here. Vikings get the ball coming out of the half. So we're thinking double back. Can we get it? How much time are we going to have left? Suddenly, Devin Singletary fumbles, and Cam Bynum picks it up and returns it for a bunch of the way. Really tough if it was a fumble or not, but we'll get into some officiating things a little later. So that one was, I would call a 50-50 call, and whatever the call on the field was would always stand, and the call on the field was fumble. So Vikings ball, call it a stroke of luck if you must. But they totally puke it away. They go 4 and out, including they had 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1 passed on both. Now, the broadcast during all this was talking about how Kevin O'Connell approaches these 3rd and 4th down situations where you call a 3rd down play with the idea that you're going to go for it on 4th down or you aren't, right? Like plan ahead of that, right? And so he has short yardage plays that he just likes against the Bills. Just here's the way they play short yardage, and I think this will work. And one of them was a smash concept, which is, a high-low on the sideline, basically. It was a corner and something low on the outside. To, I believe, Jefferson, that Cousins throws just a little bit too high, and Jefferson almost gets a toe tap down, but the corner makes a good play. Doesn't work out, high difficulty play, right? But on 3rd and 1, if you're going to go for it, sure, go for a high difficulty long one, right? And then they ran, I think, a slant or something on 4th and 1, and Osborne just couldn't hang on to it, couldn't beat the coverage to KJ Osborne. So it ends up being a turnover on downs, and the Bills drive all the way down for an easy touchdown, and you go into half down 24-10. That's where we're at halftime, right? You've had a bozo interception. You've had some offensive stagnation. You've had a couple of frustrating moments. The defense is getting destroyed, but it's the Bills. So I guess sure. And so you're just feeling horrible. And I'll go look at my tweets from the afternoon around 2 p.m. Central that you'll see. So, not a great place to go into the halftime, but of course the second half, so much more happened. There will be a lot more to talk about. But before we get into any of that, let me talk to you about Total Wine and More. It's the holiday season, and you got to find what you love. And you can find that at Total Wine and More. With so many great bottles to choose from, it is so easy to find a new favorite single barrel bourbon, or maybe the perfect gift for everyone on your list, with some help from a friendly guide, and all with the confidence of knowing you found something special for the lowest price. Find what you love and love what you find only at Total Wine and More. Curbside pickup and delivery are available in most areas. You can visit TotalWine.com to learn more, and spirits are not sold in Virginia and North Carolina. Drink responsibly and be 21. Thanks so much for making Locked On Vikings your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out Locked On Sports Today, which you can find me on talking about this game. And you can find them talking about all sports on Locked On Sports Today, hosted by Peter Bukowski. Also, check me out on Patreon, patreon.com/LukeBrownNFL. I'll be breaking down the film of a lot of these big moments in a little bit more detail than I ever can in a format like this. So I hope you are into that. Come join me over there. Let's talk about the third quarter, where the Vikings get the ball with the chance to sort of answer that final drive from the Bills. They actually did get a possession with 20 seconds left at the end of the half, but it didn't go anywhere. So third quarter starts. All right, let's try to get a score, bring this back to a one-score game, get back into this thing. And the drive is going decently, but then Cousins throws maybe one of the worst interceptions I've ever seen him throw, maybe even the worst interception I've ever seen him throw. It's mind numbing. And I got to look closer at it. I haven't looked closely enough at it. Maybe there's something that will make it click what he was thinking. But what I see is this same sort of problem. So it's curl flat, and that curl flat is a concept that puts a flat corner, like a cover two corner, into conflict against cover two. And that's what they got. It looked like it was a cover two look. So that means there is a corner who needs to choose between covering the flat and squeezing down on the curl. And you make him wrong, right? Whichever one he doesn't go, you should be able to get a decent gain on. So that corner was playing the flat. He widened out way too much. So the curl was there, and that curl was Jefferson. So it was there, and it looks like that's what Cousins was trying to throw. Now, it didn't look like he got influenced at all. There was a guy kind of in his lap, so he couldn't step into it the way he wanted, but it just goes directly to that corner. And I mean, like, it looked like purposeful. And here's the deal. NFL quarterbacks don't just accidentally forget who's wearing what jersey, right? You get paid too much for that, right? So there's got to be something that I'm missing on that. But for now, suffice to say, I am confused on that one. And it's one of the worst plays I've seen Cousins play. Even if I do come up with the reason, I doubt it's going to be like a valid excuse. That one was bad. It's also raining in this one. So like I could see like it slipped out of his hand or something. Like it was mind-boggling. I'm willing to believe some crazy stuff to explain that one away because I cannot using conventional means. So now you got like two bad ones, right? Two bad picks, and now they're coming back and they're beating you. But the defense steals. This is a huge moment for the defense to steal after that, right? Because if the Bills go down and score, you are in so much trouble. But the defense steals itself and force a punt, and that slows the game down a little. We're trading punts for a little bit until a couple drives later, Dalvin Cook on the first play of a series houses an 81-yarder on a zone run. Highlighting this is a block from Justin Jefferson that honestly eliminates two people. There's a block from Christian Darrisaw, who was playing like himself for this entire game until he gets pulled out for a concussion and Blake Brandel has to go in. That is a situation to monitor. Also, while we're on the subject of injuries, Caleb Evans goes out with a concussion as well, and he's a backup already. Andrew Booth goes in for a hot second, gets a bad PI. I guess he got pulled for it. Seems like he actually got like bona fide benched for it. I did not see any injury news or anything like that. So that has to be that, but that's something to keep an eye out for. We'll see if anybody asks. Kevin O'Connell. And Duke Shelley, who we just pulled off of the Bears practice squad, comes in and actually makes one of the biggest plays at the end of the game. We'll get to it. But that's, I believe, all of the big injury news on the Vikings side of things while we're here. But this changes everything. This big, long Dalvin Cook touchdown changes everything about the tenor of the game, right? You're down 17 points at this point. You're down 27-10 because that interception set up a field goal. That bad interception set up a field goal. I think I said punt earlier, but no, it was a field. It was 27-10 at that point, and that made it 27-17. And suddenly you're going, okay, 2-score game. It's like end of the third quarter, 2 scores in a quarter. We can do that. We've done that. They just did that last week. You start to feel it. You start to feel yourself be in it a little bit more. And I think that belief is really important to a lot of the things that happen next. How do the Bills answer? They put together this long plotting drive to slow it all back down, and they're in the red zone again, and they bring it back all the way. They bring it down all the way to a 4th and 2 in the red zone. It's a 10-point game. So this is one of those 4th down decisions. If you kick it, you make it from a 10-point game to a 13-point game, which functionally doesn't change a lot. Still a 2-possession game. And yeah, now the Vikings would need a touchdown instead of a field goal, but we've got a whole quarter to play, and it kind of feels like a field goal doesn't do a lot for you. So they go for it, and I actually agree with them going for it. I was really hoping they would kick. And Josh Allen flushes out of the pocket, which, by the way, he was running around all day long. I should definitely mention Danielle Hunter, Harrison Phillips, and Zadarius Smith. Zadarius Smith did not have his best game. He got kind of clamped down by a tight end a couple of times on major moments in the run. But Hunter and Phillips in particular were very disruptive, flushing Allen out all the time. And he basically had to run around and play hero ball. Now, there might not be anybody better in the league save one Mahomes who's better at that hero ball. And shoot, people are starting to argue about that. But better than letting him sit in the pocket, right? So here we find ourselves in a 4th and 2 hero ball situation, and Patrick Peterson is in man coverage. They're in man coverage in this particular look. And Peterson's man gets run all the way out of bounds. It's a crosser across the field. It goes all the way out of bounds. And that means Peterson can come off him and play, because once you're a receiver and you've run out of bounds, you can't come back in and catch the ball, right? So he's kind of, okay, I don't have to worry about him anymore. So he just freelances and he just jumps something that was supposed to go to somebody else, and Peterson intercepts the ball. And I mean, he could have knocked it down and still had it, but he actually intercepts the ball and returns it for better field position too. The Vikings survive, right? And you're thinking, man, they're going all the way down. They're just going to score again, make it a 3-score game again. And we're going to go in saying, shoot, they got exposed by a real team. And now suddenly you're going, wait, if they score on this drive, we're talking 1-score game here. We're talking, we're in this. And what happens at the end of this game is the part that we are going to remember forever. Before I get into all of that, let me talk to you about daily fantasy. Daily fantasy, the way I like to play it, which is on Prize Picks. That is not a pool of 6,000 people. You're not playing against a bunch of other sharps who are like gaming the system, and it's like not even fun anymore. No. This is just you against the house. And you can pick 2 to 5 of your favorite players and just whether or not they'll get more or less than their Prize Picks projection. It's that simple, and you can win up to 10 times your money if you're right about all of it. And they got this on any sport, NFL, NBA, MLB, all of this stuff, and currently operational in over 30 states as well as Canada. Download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can get a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. That means if you put in $100 and you enter the promo code Locked On, when you sign up, you get $100 slapped right on top of it, and you have $200 to play with. Put in 50, get 50 extra slapped on top, and so on. Just don't forget to enter the promo code Locked On at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. So we have arrived at the point in this game where it becomes clear that the Vikings are not going to let this one get down quietly. Up to this point, it feels like we have just been outclassed by a better team, and I even made like postcast thumbnails. By the way, check out the postcast on the Locked On Minnesota Sports YouTube channel live with me and Sam, or you can find it on this podcast channel a little later in the day. But I'm making thumbnails for that say like outclassed, and I like actually had to make a couple other ones because of how much the game kept changing. I made like 4 thumbnails for this one, but it feels bad. But from this point on, it is very clear that something has triggered in this team, and in particular in Kirk Cousins. Something very dark, a very dark switch flipped in Kirk Cousins, and he entered some other realm. And I don't think we've ever seen Kirk Cousins play as well as he played from this point on in this game. I don't think a lot of quarterbacks have a game of 60 minutes of this level of play. And I don't think Kirk Cousins does either, but he did it for 20 or however long it was, because this play, this next drive is an insane drive. It's like 13 plays or something like that, all the way down for a touchdown. It includes a 4th and 1 or 2 jet sweep to KJ Osborne where he has to fight through contact and he barely gets it. A 4th and 6 where they find TJ Hawkinson for a conversion. A Kirk Cousins scramble. A Kirk Cousins flushing out of the pocket, schoolyard, totally bailed on the play. A screenplay was called. Cousins bailed out of the pocket, and schoolyard drill finds Thielen down the field, not running a route, just kind of improvising, which is like, we never see that from him. And then the very next play was Cousins just scrambling. It's man coverage, and the whole middle of the field clears out, so he just runs, and it's like 20-yard run. And then CJ Ham cashes it in for a touchdown. It's an insane drive, and honestly, it's not even the best Cousins drive on the day. But, well, I don't know, maybe that's arguable, but even that it is arguable. Like, this was not a one-off thing. He just dug deep and found something to drive them all the way down to get a score that makes it 24-17. I'm sorry, I'm getting another update. Greg Joseph missed the extra point, 23-17. It's, yeah, that's a really rough thing. We kind of had that conversation last week about Greg Joseph, about like, look, extra points to me, as long as it stays to extra points. And I don't know if there's a lot of clarity. I think kicks are kicks a little bit. So like when somebody misses a lot of extra points but not field goals, does that hold? I think the answer technically is no. So we can kind of maybe talk about this, but it does not appear right now like the Vikings have any intention of moving on from the kicker or anything. We can argue about whether or not they should, but for now, I don't think they will. At any rate, now you need a stop for your life. How about a 3-and-out? Bills will punt it right back, and now you have, on the 12th possession of the day, you are down 4 points and you need it. And you're kind of in a 2-minute-ish situation. It's not quite a dire 2-minute-ish situation. This ends up being another like 13-play drive, but you're in this kind of, it's do or die, right? This is going to be pretty much your last shot. Especially because of some timeout stuff. There was some communication stuff that happened, so you don't have the timeouts you wish you had. Now this goes down to a 3rd and 13 situation, and Von Miller crushes Brian O'Neill for a sack. To this point, Brian O'Neill had played with what I think is a clean sheet. He was having a pretty good game to that point, but he gets beat by Von Miller. He was going to get one on you eventually. He's Von Miller. And gets a sack that sets up a 4th and 18. Now, I said 4th and 18, and if you watch the game, you know what comes next. It is the thing you see in every picture that you'll ever see on this game. It will be in every commercial for the NFL. This thing might be on the cover of Madden. This is the catch of the year on 4th and 18. So Cousins throws this ball up to Justin Jefferson, and it's totally a trust ball. It is a blind trust ball. It's a pretty good ball. Jefferson gets one arm up there, and it's just, I mean, I can't describe it to you. Just like look it up. But it's unreal. I mean, take the Odell Beckham catch and put it in double coverage. It's that kind of catch. Just catch of this guy's life. I don't know how you can possibly outdo that catch. Just a mind-boggling catch. I take play-by-play notes during every game, and my notes for this one just read, "Oh my God, Jefferson, oh my God." It's just an absolutely, and at that point you realize you're like, man, the Vikings might actually pull this off. Oh my God. Like they kind of have this in them. They end up driving this all the way down to the red zone. And unfortunately, there's a slant that Jefferson catches that he turns out to be like half a yard short on. And then offsides on the Bills on it was a free play, and Cousins throws it to Dalvin Cook, and Cook could have had it in the end zone, but he drops it. So that's a moment we maybe would have been talking about more. And then 4th and inches, because it was offside, so you get to try 4th down again. Sneak, and he didn't get the push, and it turns out that he's like an inch short. And I mean, we're talking like millimeters here. Just short. And on replay, it looks like that was the right spot, and that was the right call. One of the only times the refs got it right on the day. The refs were atrocious. I will get to that. But then maybe the most improbable thing happens. So you have given the ball to your opponent. There's 44 seconds left. You have one timeout. Anywhere else on the field, and they are in victory formation, and we all go home. But they're at the inch mark, and so you can't afford to lose a yard and kneel. That's a safety, and you would kick it back with 40 seconds up 2. So the Bills just have to sneak it out, get 2 yards so you have room to kneel it down, and you're out of this game. And they botch the snap. They fumble the snap. Eric Kendricks recovers in the end zone. Touchdown Vikings. They are now leading with 40 seconds. This is one of the most improbable things I've ever seen. You will never again in your life see a situation where a team has the ball with under a minute left and the other team doesn't have enough timeouts to stop it, lose a game. You'll never see it again. You'll never see them give the ball back again. I mean, kneel downs are the most automatic thing in football. They call it victory formation for a reason. But because of how close that goal line possession was, it gave the Bills just enough opportunity to screw it up, and they screwed it up. If you want to say that this is the reason that this win doesn't count because the Vikings got lucky, I suppose you are technically correct. I don't think that really captures the spirit of that game, but you do you. But at any rate, the Bills now have to drive down, kick a field goal, go to overtime, and that's exactly what happens. The Vikings win the toss in overtime and have an unbelievable drive rushing the ball. Dalvin Cook has a legacy drive here. I mean, he was running incredibly, and the blocking was great too. At this point, Darrisaw's out of the game, and it's Brandell. I've got to shout him out, but everybody else on the line did great too. But just the weaving and making people miss and just squeezing every inch out of everything, Dalvin Cook did phenomenal on that drive. There's also a 2nd and 22 situation where Justin Jefferson draws a DPI. And I do think it was fairly skillful to do so. He had a lot of space and the corner was playing it too far underneath and he just kind of ran right into him and they both fall over, penalty on the defense. And on a 3rd and 10, Cousins throws a just godly ball. I mean, it's like the 3rd best play for him on the day, and it's one that should be the best play for like most quarterbacks' days. It was insane to get Justin Jefferson down on the 2. So the Vikings have the ball on the 2, and they line up to run it, and the Bills have 12 men on the field. This does not get called. It should be reviewed. It also does not get reviewed. It is at this point that we should examine the officiating in this game. Now, I'm not going to sit here and complain about every call and itemize it. You can find that on other podcasts probably. But this particular one was really egregious. And there's one in the game-tying drive that sent it to overtime on the Bills' side, the field goal drive, that was a Gabe Davis catch on the sideline that, upon further review, and NFL officiating confirmed this. So this is not just me being a homer. This NFL officiating said, oh, yeah, that should have been reviewed and it would have been overturned. It was actually incomplete. He did not maintain possession throughout the catch. Why that did not get replayed? They were like, we don't know. We got to talk to the guy in their like PR speak. But that is a terrible miss on the replay guy. And it's also a terrible miss on the replay guy to not get the 12 men. I mean, this was not a guy is coming off the field and, he just didn't quite get the back of his foot in. No, this was just 12 men lined up and played. The Vikings had a rep where they were 11 on 12. That should be a 5-yard penalty on the Bills, replay the down, or half the distance, replay the down, or a free play or something. But no, they just got away with it. That should not happen. That cannot happen in the National Football League. There's absolutely no excuse for it. If the refs have to be responsible for counting people. They have to see, okay, you look at plays every week. You have so much experience doing this. You should be able to pick out that there is one extra helmet, but also that the replay guy didn't catch it and nothing happened, because you can review that and all reviews have to come from the booth. So there's nothing the Vikings could have done. That's just awful. There's nothing. I mean, it's like not the most impactful ref thing. I'm not going to quibble over like pass interference calls or whatever. I think the Vikings got a couple. I think the Bills got more. There's a really bad holding call on Christian Darrisaw. I thought was just like awful, that I think sank a drive. There was some stuff we absolutely can be mad about, but this one bothers me a lot because it's just so inexcusable. This is high school crap. The NFL officiating needs to pull that together. I am not going to be the kind of person that like rags on them every single week over subjective stuff like pass interference or roughing the passer and stuff. There's plenty of breath wasted on that. But when it comes to the procedural things, the stuff that we need to be able to take for granted as automatic, you can't be on that. And I honestly would probably be just as mad about this if we were on the other side of it and we were the beneficiaries. It's just inexcusable, and it makes the product that I cover, that I love with all of my heart and soul, a lot worse. There is my ref rant. At any rate, that leads to a loss of 3, and then the Vikings take a sack. Also some sketchy neutral zone stuff. I don't know. I'm done with it. But the Vikings take a sack. They will kick. It is 33-30, and now it is a do-or-die drive on the way back. Josh Allen needs a field goal or a touchdown to win it. It's overtime. He's been in this situation. He has been a thriller in this situation. As I've described this game, you know what it reminds me of? Bills-Chiefs divisional round last year. It feels like that kind of back and forth insane contest where there's just like 10,000 different game defining plays. And honestly, this did feel like a playoff game. I went on a couple of national shows, Locked On Sports Today and Locked On NFL, after this game to talk about it. And both of them said something about like, this felt like playing in a playoff game. And I can't remember if we were recording when we said it or not, but we were even talking like this felt like watching a Super Bowl. This felt like two teams that belong on national TV in the postseason, giving it their all, leaving everything on the field. They called it a heavyweight bout on the broadcast, and it was just a war. And it came down to this. And Josh Allen was Josh Allen. Convert. Got into the red zone. 1st and 10 in the red zone. They throw one go ball. I think it was a wheel route or something. It was a tight end down the sideline. So it might have just been a tight end split out wide. On Duke Shelley, who was not supposed to be near this game. I mean, he was a practice squad call-up from another team. But he actually gets in there and maybe gets away with a little DPI. We were owed at least that after the debacles of earlier. But he makes the pass breakup. Crazy hero play from an unsung person, from the last guy you'd expect. I mean, this is like anime stuff. And then the next play, Allen drops back to pass. He tries to fire one over the middle, and Patrick Peterson picks it off for the Vikings win. And it is only at that moment that I allowed myself to believe that this was actually happening because it still felt so unreal. The goal line fumble, it's like, man, that's too improbable. That can't count. That can't really matter, can it? But it did. And Patrick Peterson seals the game. What Patrick Peterson saw on that one was really cool. I did a Twitter breakdown of it, but basically he knew that throw was coming and he knew that he was going to be able to cut under it because he just has been around long enough to know that is a thing that teams like to, that the play that the Bills called is a play that teams like to call in the red zone against the coverage that the Vikings called. It's just something that teams like to do, and with very good reason. And Peterson had to play it pretty aggressively. I mean, had to make a pretty risky call based on his own intuitions, and he was right, and he picked it off, and he sealed the game, and that's earned. Here's the thing. The Vikings are real. And I've been saying this for a couple of weeks now. I was very skeptical before the bye. I was like, these are kind of fake wins, you know, they're getting lucky. They're not good teams, and they're not playing as well as you would expect against bad teams and stuff. They're better than the team that I was criticizing weeks 3, 4, 5. This is a better version of this team. They have gelled, like I said they would. They have pulled a lot together. They're making less mistakes. And now it's coming down to their ability and just their playmaking, right? This is coming down to who makes more plays, Stephon Diggs or Justin Jefferson. And it was Jefferson. It's 193, career high, back on pace now for 2,000 yards, by the way. Who makes more plays? Well, Dalvin Cook houses one for 81 yards. Bills didn't have a play like that, right? Bills didn't have a play like Patrick Peterson jumping one in the end zone at the end. That's the difference to me. And we can go quibble about all the luck, and maybe I'll even do it again like I did with the Washington game, where I'll go, well, how much EPA did they get on this lucky play or that lucky play? And we can sit here and argue and itemize it all that we want. But at the end of the day, the most impactful things that happened in this game were Justin Jefferson catching that 4th and 18 ball, that's making a play. Patrick Peterson getting that interception, that's making a play. Point to any number of Kirk Cousins throws, that's making a play. That is a real team that went into a contender's house and went toe-to-toe with them. And yeah, they were losing for a lot of the game, but they weren't losing for all of it. And in fact, they were winning at the end of it. They made enough plays to beat the Bills. And I don't even know if you can say they got lucky because of how bad the reffing was. If you want to count reffing as luck, which I do, I would say that they got very unlucky in that particular regard. I would say they had some bad luck on interceptions being dropped. I don't think that's particularly sustainable. You're going to start catching those eventually. They had some dropped interceptions on defense. The Vikings defense did. They had more opportunities, and then they still did get the two Patrick Peterson interceptions that they did get. They had that forced fumble. You don't accidentally force a fumble. So I think there's a lot that's earned about this game. You have to really bend over backwards if you want to disparage it. And ultimately, whatever questions you had about if the Vikings could go on the road in the postseason and beat a contender in their own house in not a great situation and go bring that game down into the mud and win it ugly, because you're not going to beat the Bills pretty. Nobody's going to beat the Bills pretty. If you're going to beat them, you're going to beat them ugly. And that's about as much as you can ask for. Go beat them ugly. If you're sitting there going, well, I'm not going to be convinced till they beat a team like that by 2 scores. You're never going to be convinced. You are determined to not be convinced. And I guess if that's the way you want to live, far be it from me to tell you not to. But this is the way that playoff games look. If you want to go win on the road in the playoffs, it's going to be like this. It's going to be down and dirty. You're going to need to take it to overtime, and you're going to need to make the plays of your life. If you don't think the Vikings can win a playoff game, I implore you to point out to me what the difference is between that game and a playoff game other than the date on the calendar. They're contenders. They're here. Buckle up. We're going to have something happen here in January, all right? So, tomorrow's Twitter Tuesday. hit me up on Twitter with your questions at Luke Braun NFL or at Locked On Vikings. You can also send emails if you got a longer thing to lockedonvikingspodcast@gmail.com or fill out the Google form in the show notes if you would rather do that. I'll see y'all tomorrow. And as always, Skull.